everyone, Josh here, and this is the first video of hopefully many more that I'd like to put out to be able to give you some insights about what's going on in the gold and silver market. And so I've got some questions that I'd like to answer. They're very basic questions, and hopefully this gives you an idea of what my thinking is moving forward as far as the gold and silver market and why we feel it's so important for people to have a portion of their portfolio invested in gold and silver and the gold and silver mining companies. So the first question that I wanted to go over is, well, why gold and silver? Well, gold and silver can serve as an excellent form of insurance against dollar devaluation. And so gold and silver have historically held their value, even though fiat currencies like the dollar that aren't backed by any type of real asset have gone down. And so for thousands of years, gold and silver has been used as money. And so it can serve as an insurance policy to be able to maintain some wealth if in the event that the currency that any country is using isn't doing well. How much gold and silver should you own, or how much exposure should you have to a gold and silver portfolio? We recommend at least 10% for people's portfolio. That provides a decent amount of insurance that if for some reason the rest of their portfolio were to do very, very poorly because of some type of currency collapse, that the gold and silver could multiply many times and be able to make up for some of those losses. Now, could you lose everything in a gold and silver portfolio? Well, technically, yes. If no one on the planet will buy gold or silver to make jewelry, or no one on the planet feels like gold or silver has any value ever again, then a gold and silver portfolio could technically go to zero. But for thousands of years, that's never happened. Just like your house could technically become worthless and no one would buy it, most likely the real estate market will never go to zero because people need a place to live. The gold and silver market will most likely, in my opinion, never go to zero because people will always value those shiny, precious objects and always want to make jewelry out of them or use them for other industrial purposes. The next question that we want to answer is, why is gold and silver going down lately? Gold and silver topped out in August of last year, 2020, and since then it's had a little bit of a pullback. Well, in my opinion, there's some price manipulation going on, and I won't get into exactly how they're doing it and why that's going on, but there are governments, the Federal Reserve, and bullion banks that really benefit from gold and silver not going up right now because they want the dollar to be strong. There's a lot of talk about the dollar losing its reserve currency status and other countries not liking the idea of the fact that we're printing so many dollars and yet we're able to buy the same amount of goods and services even though we continue to expand how many dollars are in circulation. And so they've done some price manipulation, in my opinion, to be able to keep that down. So a big question would be, why would I want to invest in a manipulated market? Well, the answer is if the price was manipulated up, you wouldn't. But if the price is manipulated down, as I believe it is, then the best analogy I've ever heard is that's like a beach ball being held underwater. Eventually, when the manipulation goes away, that beach ball is going to pop up. And that's what I feel is going to happen in the gold and silver market. Another good question is there real demand for gold and silver? And I would say absolutely, unequivocally, yes, there is demand for gold and silver. If you call your coin shop locally and say, hey, can I come in and buy some silver eagles or some gold eagle coins or some South African Krugerrands, they're going to laugh. They're going to say, well, we don't have any of those. Or if they do, there's going to be a high premium above the spot price. You can look up the spot price on Google. What's the spot price of gold or what's the spot price of silver? And you'll find that there's an extremely high premium above that spot price that you're going to have to pay for any physical gold and silver because it's in such high demand. So the physical gold and silver market is under extreme pressure and under extreme demand. That's real. So what do I expect to happen to gold and silver long term? Well, gold and silver is real money in my opinion. It's always been real money. The dollar was backed by gold up until 1971 when Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. Those Federal Reserve notes were just supposed to be a convenience so that we didn't have to lug around heavy gold and silver coins and bars all the time. And so they gave us these paper notes. But because the government printed so many of those paper notes, other countries realized that we were printing more paper notes than we actually had gold, started demanding their gold, and Richard Nixon told them no and took us up off the gold standard in 1971. That was supposed to be temporary, but it's been 50 years and we've never gone back on the gold standard. So the dollar is a fiat currency. And so I expect the price of gold and silver eventually to reach the place in dollar terms that it should be according to how many dollars they've printed. And it has not done that yet. I feel like gold and silver are extremely undervalued assets and have a very, very large potential to increase in value in the future. The number one reason that I feel like that would happen is because I feel like the dollar is going to continue to lose value because of how many they've printed. The next question I'd like to answer is there inflation going on right now? And the answer is yes. At the very last Federal Reserve meeting, Jerome Powell had to admit that there was some inflation creeping up. And the term he used for it is transitory or not permanent, temporary. But he doesn't know that for sure, what's going to happen in the future. And I feel like there is going to continue to be inflation for obvious reasons because they've printed so much money. We're just waiting for the velocity of money for people to go out and spend those dollars, to go to a restaurant and leave a tip and take a taxi and stop and get a drink and go to the grocery store and have that money flow through the system and have that velocity pick up, and that can cause inflation. And so my expectation in the future is for there to be a massive amount of inflation because there's been a massive amount of money printing. And when we get back to the velocity that we were at in the past, then we're going to see a large amount of inflation. And so my thoughts about the availability of gold and silver in the future are that the availability is going to be less and less as people realize that they need to be able to maintain the value of their money, which they're going to want to put into real money and not into fiat currency. And so will there be gold and silver in the future available? Well, in the paper market, in the investment market, yes. And I believe that'll be at higher prices. In the physical market, I think it'll continue to be more and more difficult to obtain physical gold and silver. And if you call your coin shop or any local gold and silver dealer, they'll confirm what I'm telling you. Last question I want to answer in today's video, because I want to keep this short, is when should we sell? And in the Gold Silver Plus portfolio, it's a managed portfolio. And so we have the ability to move investments to cash as we feel like gold and silver has gotten to the point where maybe it's run its course. And so I'm paying attention to that. I'm watching on a daily basis the gold and silver prices and the news and what's going on with dollar printing and the gold and silver markets. So we have the ability to manage that for you. And I will know when is a great time to move a lot more of our assets into cash, when the government stops debasing our currency by printing so much money that we don't have. The government is broke basically. And so they have a theory that they can just create debt and spend money. And that technically could work indefinitely until other countries decide that they've had enough of taking our dollars because we've printed too many of them. And that's where we're at right now is other countries are still taking our dollars and we're still printing more and more of them. And at some point in time, I expect that not to be able to continue. And so the last point I'd like to make is the reason that gold and silver is so important is because it is real money. Every person, business, or government who ever went broke in the past had too much debt. And that's what we're doing. We have way, way too much debt. Companies have too much debt. They've suppressed the interest rates so people can continue to keep that debt rolling forward. But at some point in time, there's going to be consequences for all this debt and all this money printing. And that's when you will want to have a position, in my opinion, in gold and silver, and especially in the gold and silver mining companies that are pulling it out of the ground at a profit. And so I hope this video was helpful for you to be able to hear some of my opinions about gold and silver and why it's so important. And hopefully this gives you some confidence in your portfolio, as it might have some fluctuations in market value. But I would encourage you to continue to hold your gold and silver portfolio as an insurance policy, knowing that our government is continuing to pile on more debt that the taxpayers are essentially going to be responsible for, and printing and spending more money that they don't have. I hope you have a great day, and I hope I'm not being too negative here, but I wanted to put this video out so that you have some confidence in the types of investments that we're recommending. Have a great day.